Hi and welcome back to my channel. Today's a little bit different. Today we're going to be talking about when I said in the last video about the little chicken drama that I had. So I live in an HOA. That could probably sum up pretty much everything I'm about to say, right? So as y'all know, or if you're new here, I've had the chickens for a year. March 15th was a year. So no problems. Before I even got them, I asked the two neighbors that are right next to me, I asked them if it was okay if I bought them in the first place, because I didn't want to be told on, right? Anyways, and they all said it was fine as long as I didn't have roosters, and I gave them eggs, so it was a win-win. Everybody got something out of it, right? And I'm friendly with the neighborhood, so it's not like it was them. It wasn't their fault. Anyways, so I had them out in the backyard for a whole year. Well, they have to be inside for a little bit, but they were outside for a whole year. And then right before Easter, I got an email. It was that Friday, so Good Friday. I got an email, the whole neighborhood got an email saying that we were going to have our annual HOA meeting, okay? But it was like they were talking about our little park that we had and fixing up the ponds that we have, things like that. And I didn't keep reading it. I kind of just skimmed and, you know, went on with my business. I didn't keep reading the email. So my neighbor had texted me and she's like, did you see the email that we got about HOA? And I was like, no, let me go look. And that was that Monday. So I typed in HOA in my email and it pulled up a different one that I had just got that morning. So I opened that one. That was just addressed to me, nobody else in the neighborhood. And it said I was in violation of their covenant or guidelines, whatever they want to call it. So it said, they know I have chickens and I'm not in trouble yet because at the meeting that following week, it would be the following week on Tuesday, and they were going to vote yes or no if we can amend the covenants to have allowed chickens. But in the email, it says amend the covenants to allow birds like chickens. Now that's the first thing that they should have not done. They should have said chickens, backyard chickens, right? They shouldn't have said birds like chickens, right? Because then it got everybody in a tizzy, right? Everybody's so confused on what that meant. Now, when we first moved here, I had asked for the covenants and I had asked for their guidelines or rule book, whatever they wanted to call it. I asked 3 times now. I've asked and I've yet to see it. So, and I wasn't the only one that had chickens. I know I'm whispering, but I wasn't the only one. And that person that had it way longer than I did. And they have no clue. Still to this day, they have no clue that they're there. And another lady had a potbelly pig. So I was like, maybe our HOA, since it's self-governed, it's not ran by the HOA company. And I was like, maybe they're more lenient. Because when we moved here, everybody was like, it's more lenient. They had vegetable gardens. When we lived in our old house, that was HOA. We couldn't have vegetable garden. You couldn't have fruits. You couldn't have, you know, exotic pets. You couldn't have chickens. You couldn't have toys out in the front yard. Your trash can needed to be put away immediately. All those kind of rules, right? Your regular HOA, right? The strict HOA. So then when we moved here, everybody's like, it's super lenient. I was like, okay, if somebody has a potbelly pig and somebody else has chickens, I think I'm in the clear. No, I assumed wrong. You know what you get when you assume things, right? Okay, so when I get that email, I texted her and I was like, hey, they found out I have them. She was like, is it just addressed to you? And I said, yeah, it's just for me. And she's like, okay. So I had like a couple tears come down, nothing dramatic. And I told my daughter, my oldest, because she had saw that I was upset. And I had told her that we were in violation of having the chickens and we can vote on them. And if the vote doesn't go through, then we have to get rid of them in 2 weeks. And she was like, okay. And she started making signs, just like little pictures that said, save the chickens, save our chickens, right? And it had like, I wrote on the back saying, this is when the meeting is. You don't have to go if you don't want to. There's an absentee ballot. Now, they've never done an absentee ballot. And I've never been to one of the meetings before, so I didn't know how they ran. I've been to the meetings at the old HOA, and it was very, you know, you raise your hand, you wait your turn, kind of thing. And they gave you printouts of everything that they were going to talk about and discuss. So I kind of thought that's what this was going to be like, right? Back to my story. I got interrupted, but y'all know who it is. So that's what I thought the meeting was going to be like. So my daughter was like, we'll go door to door. And I was like, okay. And I said, but just if we go door to door, doesn't mean they're going to answer the door. And it doesn't mean they'll say yes. And it doesn't mean they'll actually vote. So we can just tell them about the meeting. So we have like about 70 houses in our neighborhood, give or take maybe 65 to 70. I didn't count, but it's a large amount. And we live out in the country. I should have told you that before, but we live out in the country. It's Kansas, and there's farmlands behind me. It's a big land behind me, behind my house in our backyard, and it's crops. They do corn or they'll do soy. So the first year we lived here was soy, and then the next year was corn. So we lived here for 2 years. But they always rotate it, so it's never the same thing. Anyways, so I told her, and she's like, okay. So we go door to door. I was telling some people, and they're like, yeah, I'll vote, you know, I'll vote yes. I have no problem with chickens. It doesn't bother me. I was like, okay. And then some of the people, 5 people that I talked to, said they never got the email about the meeting at all. So then I would forward them the email so that they could get the absentee ballot. Now, I don't know if they used it or not, but I at least tried, right? We tried our best, right? We did it for 3 days because we couldn't do all 60 plus houses in one day. And, you know, not everybody's gonna be home at a certain time. So we were doing it at different times of the day. Hopefully we could catch as many people as we could. So then that weekend we had, you know, Easter, we had my son's birthday, and then it was the meeting, okay? The meeting was April 2nd. Did the meeting. The meeting didn't start till 7, which that's already late. That's late for my kids. My husband worked full time, so I took the kids with me. And everybody was like, you need to go, you know, you need to try and talk on your side and things like that. But I think I jumped ahead the story too quick. So the HOA brought this up to ballot, the chicken thing, not because of me. They didn't bring it up because I had them in my backyard. They would have just told me to get rid of them. So the head of HOA, her daughter lives across the street from me. She's the one who wanted to have the chickens, and she's tried for 2 years to get it on the ballot or to get it voted in. So this is finally the year that they actually let it get voted in. I don't know how or why, but I kind of think, this is all speculation, but I kind of think she was like, she already has them. Can we maybe amend it so maybe I can get some too and not be, you know, in the guidelines, things like that. And I had talked to her across the street when we were going door to door, and I was like, hey, you know about the meeting? And she was like, yeah, I know. And I was like, okay. And I was like, it's about the chickens. And I said, I already have them. And she goes, I know you already have them. Like that. And I was like, dang, never told you, right? So I don't know if she's the one that told or her mom told her, because her mom's the head of HOA, right? But there is somebody in the neighborhood that tattles on everyone. Okay, so do you remember at the beginning of the story when I told you about, I was playing with a little thing. At the beginning of the story when I told you there was a neighbor with a pig, but it was a potbelly pig, and we lived here for 2 years. My neighbor, that's right on this side of me, she's lived here for 3 years and has seen the pig. I've seen the pig, and she has a privacy fence, but it's on a hill. So when the pig's up on the hill and you're driving by or walking by, you can see it, right? And it's not loud, it's not smelly, you can't smell it, right? It's a pet. No worse than a dog, I think, because pigs are really, really intelligent. They're normally clean. It's not one of those meat pigs, right? You know what I mean, you know what I mean. So they made her get rid of her pig last month. They said it was an exotic animal. Now in Kansas, I don't know about other places, in Kansas it's not an exotic animal. That's livestock, and it's also, I think a potbelly pig, I'd have to look it up, but I think a potbelly pig is a domesticated animal. So that went down. I felt terrible for her because I'm over here upset about chickens and they don't even come in my house, right? And she didn't even get a chance to fight to keep them, or to fight to keep her pig. So then there was a Facebook post. Somebody had said, "Dear community," got interrupted. So it was like, "Dear community, I hope this finds everybody well." It was just like weird, but I don't have Facebook. My neighbor came by and was like, "Hey, look at this post." So it was a big, long thing. And it was like, we should not have chickens in this neighborhood. It lowers the property value. They're smelly, dirty, and loud. And then they also said chickens and ducks and what else did she say? She brought up ostriches. And in my mind, I was like, how are we bringing up ostriches in the same... I don't know. And I was like, nobody's going to have a pet ostrich. Maybe somewhere else, but not here. It gets too cold. That's a bird from Africa. I don't know. In my mind, I was like, you're comparing apples to oranges. Like, they're not the same. They're not the same critter. Chickens are domesticated. Ostriches are not. Chickens in the city, you're allowed to have in my city. So I just don't understand it. Then she also said about predators. Again, we live out in the country. There's going to be predators or not. There's coyotes out here. There's raccoons, possums, skunks, all snakes. There's all different kind of dogs that get out. There's all different kinds of predators out here. But when we lived in the city, there was still the same predators. There was still coyotes. There was still all these things. It's not going to change if I have the backyard chickens or not. And they're well contained. They're not going to get out and nothing's going to get them. Anyways, it was like talking to a brick wall. But I didn't message anything because, you know, I don't have it. And nobody else messaged besides one other person had messaged on there and was like, yeah, I'm a realtor. It's going to lower the property values. And I was like, you know, I don't think so, because nobody's going to leave their coop when they move out. But I don't know. You know, that's just me speculating, right? I guess it doesn't matter. So then we go to the meeting. And we get there at 6:55. It started at 7. The head of HOA was behind me, like pulled up behind me to the building. And then my neighbor pulled up behind me and then some other people. So I wasn't the last one. And I wasn't going to get there super duper early with three kids. So we get in there and there's like a guy standing at the doorway telling us all to be quiet because the meeting already started. And I was like, okay. But why, how long has it started? You know, those kind of questions are going through your head, but you're trying to be quiet and not ask too many questions. We go get sat down. They're starting to talk about the finances, but I don't know how long they've been talking about finances. And they're very quiet when they're talking about finances. The screen that they have up, it's like teeny tiniest. It's like size 9 print. Like, it is so tiny. And there were other people saying they can't read it. They still wouldn't make it bigger. And I was like, that's a little fishy, right? Maybe they just didn't want to talk about it too much because there's a lot to talk about finances. Maybe they should have had it printed out so we could all look at it ourselves. It would have been better, I think. And then they talked about the park, and then they talked about the pond. And there was no back and forth. There was no letting us discuss it. It was only them getting to discuss it and them getting to vote on it, which I guess is fine. That's probably how HOA is, but I don't know. Thought it was weird. And then they finally get to the chickens. Okay, this meeting has gone on for an hour and 20 minutes, and they finally get to chickens. They zoom in the board huge so we can all read the little chicken thing that they wrote down. But this is how they do it. They stand up and they go, now let's talk about chickens. If we're going to allow them into the neighborhood and if we're going to amend the covenants. And I'm kind of like, okay, this is my chance, right? I wrote a little speech. It was all facts. It wasn't like anything like, I love them, let's keep them. It was like stuff I found on the internet and, you know, stuff I know about them. And nobody got the chance to like civilized conversation. It was total anarchy, chaos. So one of the guys like was super loud. So he's going to talk over everybody because he has a deeper voice. I'm the youngest one there besides my children. Everybody's older. They were saying, we're allowed to have them in the city. And I was like, yes. And then he goes, but in the city, we're also allowed to have 100 pigeons. That's what he pivoted to. He pivoted to, we're allowed to have chickens, but we're also allowed to have 100 pigeons. So now everybody's going to want pigeons. And I was like, nobody eats eats pigeon eggs. And I'd said that. And they kind of just kept talking over me. And I was just like looking at my neighbor. I was like, this is going nowhere, right? I can't talk. There's no point. They were bringing up how this one guy on the HOA, he goes, we have to keep the exotic pets out. And I was like, oh, chickens aren't exotic. Chickens are domesticated. You Google it. Like, it's on there. It's on the internet. It's well-known knowledge. At least I thought it was. So then he brought up, the guy on HOA, he brought up potbelly pigs. He goes, those are exotic animals, and we had to get rid of those. And I was just like, this lady bottle fed that pig when it was a baby. Had to get rid of it. Then he brought up chickens, and then he brought up snakes. Those are not, they're not the same. And technically a snake's an exotic pet, but technically in Kansas, you're allowed to have snakes. Maybe not an anaconda, but you can have snakes, right? And if, I don't want snakes, but if I wanted to put a snake in my house, you don't get to say if I have it in my house. I thought that was weird. But then again, it's HOA, so I have no clue. No clue. I still have yet to see guidelines. I still have yet to see any rules. I have no clue. Are they allowed to tell you what you can and can't have in your own house? Because obviously they can tell me what I can and can't have in my backyard, in other people's backyards, even if they have a privacy fence. So I don't know. So we get to vote, and we turn it in. I didn't get to talk. The lady who wanted them at the beginning of the story, the lady who wanted them across the street, she didn't talk not one time. If you're going to get these to ballot and then not say anything, I thought that was weird. Right? You did all that work and asked your HOA and asked them to finally get it on the board. You're not going to talk? Weird. So then they tell us, right before they tell us the vote, they said each ballot counts as 2 votes. And I was like, what? And they were like, yeah, if it's both yes, then that counts as 2 yeses. And if it's both no, it counts as 2 no's. And if it's yes or no, they exit each other out. And I was like, okay, because they said there's 2 adults per household normally. And I was like, okay. And they said that's how they did it 27 years ago when they built or made this HOA. And I was like, okay, that's fine. A little weird that you're telling us now, right before you tell us the vote. But okay. So then they tell us it's 42 to 26, and it was 42 no. My daughter was wearing a little baseball hat, covered her face, was crying, but not loud, you know, and I told her, I was like, let's just leave. Let's just walk out. There's no point to stay. We don't need to stay. So we left, and a man had followed me out, and he was like, sorry, we couldn't save the chickens. And I just cried. I was trying to hold it together, and I just cried. And he told me that he used to have ducks, and they made him get rid of it. Now, what is weird to me is we have the ponds, so we're allowed to attract and feed wild animals, like birds, the ducks, the wild ducks, the Canadian geese, the whatever else we have out here. That's okay. But I can't have backyard birds. Chickens. So we talked about that for a little bit, and then we drove home. I told my husband, and then when he got home, he was like, maybe we could pay like a monthly fine as long as it's not super crazy. If it's like $50 to $100, he goes, maybe we could just pay and we could keep them because they're more like pets, right? They don't come in our house, but my kids play with them and we get their eggs. But I was like, okay, but that's going to be like a really expensive egg. You know, because you got to pay to feed them, and then now we're going to pay a monthly fee. He goes, just ask, you know, it doesn't hurt to ask. So I was like, okay. So I asked them. They messaged me back 2 days later saying no, but it wasn't a no. It was like a big, long no. But in my email, I said, I know that the vote didn't pass. I know I'm technically in violation. I told them, I said, my neighbors don't mind if I have them. Then I was like, is it okay if I pay a monthly fine to keep them? They said no. They said it was a fair vote, fair meeting. Everybody got a chance to talk. And I was like, okay. And then it said, it was a big, long thing. It said I have to get rid of them in 10 days. Even though it said after the vote I had 2 weeks. So it would be 12 days from that because they had waited 2 days. You know what I mean? Because 2 weeks is 14. Anyways, they said if I were to keep them and I got a second violation, it was 30 days or $30 every single day that I had them. That's $900 a month if I were to keep them. And I was like, yeah, I can't keep them. So I messaged them back. And I was like, well, we did not have a fair meeting. Nobody got an opportunity to actually talk. And then I said, I feel like it was like a witch hunt, right? They didn't want them here. So it wouldn't have mattered what I said. It was not fair. It was not, but maybe that's just how HOA is. I know technically I'm in the wrong. Maybe I should have asked them first. Maybe I should have asked them before, you know, I spent the money and got them and then spent the money to house them. You know, all the things. Hindsight's 20/20. Right? It's all my fault. I understand. I am rehoming them. They have been rehomed with my friend, my husband's friend. They took them. And then the coop's being picked up. But it's just a big mess. We can't keep the coop. Couldn't keep the birds. And then in my mind, I was like, my chickens didn't get out. They didn't bother anyone. They weren't aggressive. We have dogs in the neighborhood that get out and are aggressive, or they constantly bark, or they disrupt the peace, or you can tell they're aggressive because they lunge at the fence and they are clearly wanting to get one of the children. Doesn't matter if it's mine or not. It's any kids or any adults. They want out. But that's okay. I guess because it's domestic. Because that one is clearly a domesticated animal and the chicken's like a backyard farm animal. I don't understand it. I don't understand. And then my neighbors, they were all like, you should be on the board. And I was like, no. I don't want to be on HOA for everybody to hate me. I already don't like the HOA because I've asked multiple times for the rule books and they haven't given it to me. And then I was like, if I couldn't even get the chickens to vote, like if I couldn't get the vote for the chickens, not the chickens to vote, but there's no way they're going to vote me in on the board. And if I am on the board, they'll vote me right out. I was like, they're going to keep me on there. And they're like, no, we need women on the board. We need somebody younger. And I was like, yeah, but I would need more than one person to go with me, right? I am abiding by their rules, and they never messaged me back when I was talking to them about how it wasn't fair. And I did want to clarify that I still had 12 days, not 10. And then I wanted to clarify what day they needed to be out by. They have yet to say anything back. And they didn't send out the minutes. They didn't send out the vote. Nobody knows unless it was word of mouth, which I thought was weird. It's been a whole week and we haven't gotten anything about the meeting unless you were there or you were talking to somebody that was there. I don't know. It's a big mess, really big mess, and probably never, I don't even know why I said probably, but I would never live in an HOA again. Never. Definitely want land, but I want, you know, the chickens. I want goats. I want to do the meat rabbits. Now, I've never killed anything in my life, except for bugs, but that is something I would want to learn how to do and to be self-sufficient. I don't know. A lot of things to think about, a lot of things to do between now and then, but definitely no more HOAs. Absolutely ridiculous. So I did look up online after all this what HOAs can actually do, right? They can put liens on your houses. In Kansas, they can go to your backyard even if you have a fence. But my husband was like, maybe they can if it's locked. And I said, I don't know, because it says they can go to your backyard. I don't know. And then when he was talking about snakes, and I was like, can they control what's in your house? I don't know. It's weird. I don't like it. I don't like being told what to do. And I'm a rule follower. I'm pretty much, you know, go with the flow, except for this, right? You gotta put your foot down, I guess. I don't know. But I don't know. Maybe I'm not the rule follower. Maybe I'm not, right? I don't know. I'm a rule follower with everything else. You know, taxes are going to be turned in at this time. Don't drink and drive. Don't do this. That's fine. But my chickens weren't hurting anybody, and they weren't going to hurt anybody. So, I don't know. And I even told them all that, and they said they knew it was, unfortunate is what they said. It's unfortunate for you and your family. And that's why I feel super bad about the lady that had the pig, right? I don't know. I feel like other things to be addressed, but I don't like being the tattletale. I don't like being somebody who's complaining about the dogs. I don't want to be that person, but now I feel like you have to be. You kind of have to be, or it's not going to change. I don't know. And then you think about what they did to you, so then you don't want to do it to other people. But I don't want one of those dogs to get my kids. And they never go outside without me. They're always with me, but that's neither here nor there. They probably wouldn't care even if I did say something. They wouldn't care. Obviously, they like the dogs. I don't know. I know today was different. The video was completely different. Just letting you guys know what was going on. It was not the normal past 2 weeks. It was hard. But we're going to be back to thrifting, back to everything, back to normal. But I've always just used my business as, you know, like a hobby, as, you know, the money I get in, I put back into the business. I just keep, you know, it's like a full circle. I don't pull money out. I don't take anything out of it. It normally is just buying inventory or buying supplies that I need for boxes or tape, things like that. But now, since this has all happened, I really want to use that and start saving it for the homestead. And I know that's only going to be like pennies compared to the giant scheme of things. But if that could buy, you know, the chickens, or buy the chicken coop, or buy the goats, or buy the goat pen, you know, anything, right? That's what we're going to use it for from now on. And that's what I'm using it for. Just for myself, right? You know, something for our future, something that my kids could actually have, and not just money, right? Something like the farm that would keep living. I don't know. It's totally different lifestyle than what I've ever done. But actually, you know, having the chickens really changed my mind about everything. But we'll see. Hopefully we can make it happen, right? Maybe it won't happen in a year. It might take a while, but definitely that's our goal, our family goal. So I know it was a long video, super long, but I know it's Friday. I hope y'all all have a good weekend. We're gonna put this in the past. The friend that took the chickens, we gave them to them. They've been sending us updates, and we're allowed to come up to their house whenever, and we can come see them. I know they're well taken care of. They have a lot of land, so I know that they're in good hands, but it is hard. It's okay, right? It's Friday, so we're gonna make it a good day, right? All right. Thank you for watching. Like and subscribe.